Hey everyone, it's Jeremy with Teletone. I did not buy my first analog synth until I was in my late 20s. I bought a Juno 60, and it's actually the one that is sitting behind me on that shelf. And I remember my friend Ryan told me that people make electronic drum sounds with analog synthesizers. And I didn't know you could do that, and I didn't know how to do that. And here at Teletone, we just released our first full function synthesizer called Oracle. It is out now, and I thought it would be really fun for one of the first videos that I do to teach you how to make electronic drum sounds using a synthesizer. That's what we're going to do today, and let's jump in. Oracle does come with a handful of presets that I made that are drum sounds, but rather than just kind of load them up and explain how I made them, I think it'd be more fun to just make some from scratch. So let's go ahead and initialize the whole instrument. And we've made a whole bunch of videos explaining how a lot of this works, so if you feel a little bit lost, don't even worry about it for this video. So we might as well start with making a kick drum. And there's kind of two different directions that we could go with that. There's like an 808 style kick drum and then more of an acoustic style. So I would say we should definitely do both. And to get started, I'm going to go ahead and turn off oscillator B. Oscillator is just a fancy word for like a source or a sound. And then for A, rather than choosing a sound, I'm actually going to go to this option, none, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it will in a second. So if we go down to the bottom under this tone section, there is a sub knob and a noise knob, and you'll see that there's an A and a B switch here. That is no coincidence. It goes to A or B up here. And for this sub knob, I want it to go to A. So I'm not loading a source because I don't really want to layer a subby sound on a subby sound, but I do want to use this sub oscillator. And there are actually two different options you can choose, a sine wave and a square wave. Let's hear both of them. Okay, there's the sine wave. There's the square. Let's go back to the sine. Now I'm using the word 808 a little bit loosely, but a little more specifically than most people use it. 808 to most people just means anything low, subby sounding, but we're going to use a sine wave because it does sound the closest to a true 808. If you're on your phone, you probably can't even hear that. So this sub oscillator, or this sub sound, is going to A. Next, I want to mess with the envelope. What the envelope is it's basically a way to shape the sound. You can affect the way that the sound either the way that the attack either fades in, or maybe it's a really fast attack that hits you right away. You can affect how long it sustains for, how long it decays for, and then the release. And for this, for being a kick drum, I'm going to turn the sustain all the way down because I don't want this holding out forever. I don't want to use it as a bass. I want this to be more like a kick drum. So we're going to have the fastest attack. It's all the way down. And then the decay is going to be how long after I press the key it takes to get to the resting phase of sustain, which in this case, sustain is at 0, so it will just fade out to nothing. So this is too long. Let's try this. Maybe a little shorter. Okay, I think I like that. Now, this doesn't really sound like an 808 yet, and I think that is mainly because the most signature thing of an 808 kick drum from a TR-808 is the pitch envelope. I'm going to go up to this movement section, and what I want to do is I want to add movement to tune. Specifically, I want the pitch to drop. I want on the attack for it to be in one place, and then as it decays, I want that to go down. So we've tried to set this up in a very intuitive way. We have movement, we have these tabs, we have tune, we want to make it move. What do? We just drag it on to tune, just like that. Now, this LFO, which is a low frequency oscillator, you don't need to worry about it. We're just talking about movement. That is attached to this. And you hear it kind of pulsating. You could also see it pulsating up and down here. But that's not what we want it to do. We want it to only happen once. So we are going to use a custom LFO that I made. And we need to make sure that by the time it gets to the end of that the note is already done so it doesn't circle back around and jump up in pitch again. This little button right here opens up a menu for custom LFOs. And then I have one saved here that is called pitch envelope down. You can actually use this for anything you want, but this is what I use it for most. And so now, if you're listening closely, you heard like a dip, but it's happening really fast. So let me slow that down. So now you can start to hear it getting a little bit closer to 808 territory. I think that it is starting too high and traveling too far, so I want to now change the depth. We're looking for something a little bit less than a half step, I believe. I should have looked this up before I started the video. I don't remember for sure how far an 808 drops. And if you look at the bottom, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's a little indicator showing this moving along the path. And I want to make sure that this doesn't circle back around. And the note is dead before it reaches the end, so we don't have to hear that again. And so that is like, we're in the ballpark of something that sounds a little bit like an 808. But there's a couple things we could do to make it a little more interesting. For one, let's go ahead and boost the saturation a little bit. Give it a little bit more tone. And if we wanted to add even more tone, I've noticed that when I use these subby sounds, if you turn up drive, it gives it a little bit more of the sound of a note. So if you want to hear the note a little bit more, you can turn up that drive. I'm going to keep that back down for now. Another thing we could do is add a little bit of noise just to make sure that this isn't so subby that you can't tell exactly what's happening. Like, I want it to come out of the background just a little bit. So I want to add some noise. And you can see once again we have this A and B switch. I want to send this over to B though, because I want to have a little bit more control over the decay of the noise. So let's turn on oscillator B. And then once again, I'm going to go to none. Now this is going to follow the envelope of this. And just like the sub had two different types of oscillator, this has two different types of noise. And I'm going to go to pink noise because it has a little bit less high end. And I don't mind it decaying similarly to the sub, but I do want to use the filter here, and I want to filter out some of that high end. And these are linked, so I'm going to unlink it. Turn this decay up a little bit. Make sure reverb is off. And I think that's pretty interesting. And one last thing I was just thinking of is that when you turn up this vintage knob, every note that you play, you won't be able to hear it as much on a sub, but when you're playing like a normal sawtooth, it just makes it a little bit more pitchy, like every time you trigger a note. Some go flat, some go sharp. And in a way, this is a way to kind of get some round robins out of your kick drum, out of your 808 sound. That it's going to change just a little bit. You probably won't even really notice it, but that could just make it a tiny bit more interesting that it's not exactly the same sound every time you hit it. Okay, and now let's go to that second kick sound we were talking about, and this one will go a lot faster because it's a bit simpler. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and turn off B for now, and I know that I want to shorten this up a bit. And if you want to hear a little bit of a clicky attack like the beater of the kick drum, you could keep that attack all the way down. If you want it to sound like more of a muffled attack, just move this a couple pixels. And then it sounds a little bit smoother, which is probably what I would want for now. As far as this pitch envelope goes, I think this is going to be happening so fast that you probably wouldn't hear it. Let's go ahead and speed it up anyway. And when you watch this tune, you can see the movement. That's pretty good. All right, let's turn oscillator B back on. Let's get a little bit of noise in here. And you can hear we're way too long on this. And actually, I want to turn this filter, I want to open this filter back up. And then let's turn this attack down. I'm going to bypass it here. Hear how we get a little bit of that noise of like the percussive sound of it hitting the head of the drum. And from here on out, we're kind of in the world of like preference of whatever you like. Let's turn up the saturation a little bit. And then let's see if anything interesting happens when we mess with the cutoff and resonance. Again, kind of a matter of taste as far as what you're looking for there. And then the last thing I was thinking of is actually for this one, we could put a little bit of a room reverb on here just to make it sound a little more lively. And that's something akin to an acoustic kick drum. All right, let's do a snare. I'm going to initialize this whole thing again, and it's going to go a little bit faster with everything we do here. And for now, again, let's just turn off oscillator B. And this time we're actually going to get to use an oscillator. And I want to use this Moog Model D. Let's go ahead and pick a square. Sounds like that. And I want to make a big, fat, snappy snare drum. So I'm going to pitch this down. I could also play lower, but it'd be a little awkward. And I want the pitch to drop again. So let's go back into the custom LFOs. I want to pick pitch envelope down. And then how do we assign it to tune? You can say it out loud. We're just going to drag and drop it on. There we go. Now let's kind of look at it and watch. I think that's probably about the right speed, but we're going to turn this decay down so far. I'm probably going to want to filter out some of that. Okay, there's our snare drum. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, that's a piece of it, but we need more sounds. We are once again going to use the tone. Let's go ahead and send it to B, and then we're just using the noise, so I'm going to select none again. And it looks like my envelopes were linked. So let's go back to the noise one. And we're going to keep that wide open this time. Let me hear the pink noise. I might use that. I'm going to use this resonance in the cutoff to dial in a little more high end. Filtering out some of the low end for this noise. All right, let's add some saturation. Still messing with the decay. Yeah, it's still not quite there. Let me mess with this noise a bit more. Okay, they were getting a little closer. Okay, there we go. So there we have something that's kind of akin to like an electronic sounding snare drum. And then from there, you can kind of dial it in a little bit differently. I'm curious about fading in either the noise or the square. Yeah, that sounded kind of snare-like for an electronic drum sound. And then once again, we could add a room, not really a reason to for this. All right, there's a snare drum. Let's do a hi-hat. I'm gonna initialize again. This one's gonna be more straightforward with a little twist at the end. This time, I guess I'm in the habit of just sending the noise to B. So we'll just keep doing that. Noise is going to B, and we are doing hi-hats. Sustain needs to go all the way down. Well, there, and we're almost already there. I'll stick with white noise for now. Let's make it a little crisper. And then using this high-pass filter, I'm making it even a little bit crispier. And then here's a little trick. We're going to do control-click on the decay. And it's going to MIDI learn. I'm going to wiggle the mod wheel. It looks like my envelopes are connected. Let's disconnect them. And now we can open and close our hi-hats. And there we have a hi-hat. Okay, and while we're at it, because we're going to be pretty close here, let's go ahead and make a ride. I have here, and I think I want to make this like kind of the attack of the stick hitting the ride. And then on oscillator A, I'm going to load up more noise. It's going to be almost an all noise video. And the decay is already kind of close to what I want it. All right, I think I'm going to disconnect B from this cutoff, and I'm going to use this one over here. Because I need to do something different with this for A. So I'm using A only, B is turned off. And this time I'm going to turn up the release because I don't want to have to hold it every time I hit it. Just for kicks, let me see what happens if I put a little bit of an effect on it. You probably heard enough of that in your ears. But anyway, that's something akin to a ride. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to make, let's go ahead and make a tom. Now, this tom is not going to sound like an acoustic drum kit. This is going to be more in the spirit of like an 808 type tom. And I think, I don't remember for sure, but I think last time I made one of these, I think I was using triangles, and I think I used 2 of them, possibly pitched apart, like an octave maybe. Oh, whoops, let me initialize. Okay, turn off that stuff for now. So once again, we're going to go to our envelope first, and this time I'm going to keep these envelopes linked. That's probably fine for now. And let me put these a couple of, this one's 2 octaves down. Let me put this one 1 octave down. What do you think we're going to do next? We're going to add the movement to the tune again. And how do we do that? We drag it straight on. Then we're going to go to our custom LFOs. And I'm going to select that pitch envelope down again. But I need to do it to both of these. So I'm going to drag this one over here too. Now you can see that this is moving too fast through this because it's circling back around. So either the decay needs to be shorter or this needs to happen a little bit differently. So Make sure we have no sustain here. All right, let's add a little bit of noise. Saturation. Let me try adding the sub in here. And then let me see what happens if we use a little bit of this filter envelope. Once again, sustain all the way down. Let's turn the release down. And we're starting to get close. That's something. Add a little bit of room reverb. And I can hear this release clipping it just a little bit, like cutting it off too soon. Add our round robins. And that is something that sounds pretty close to me, like an electronic tom. So that's kind of a fun way that you can make electronic drum sounds using Oracle. You probably have some really good ideas of how to do this also. Please share those with us on social media. We are at Teletone Audio. The website is teletoneaudio.com, and our newest product, Oracle, is out now. Thank you so much for watching.